does it set the ceiling? Like, does it set the floor? Does it set the ceiling? Does it set the ceiling as far as you have this much talent, but your culture isn't that strong, where it's like, this is as high as you can go.
Hmm.
Your talent can get you here, but it's not going to get you any. It's not going to get you any higher.
Welcome to the Jamodi Podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it.
Today we are joined by the head men's basketball coach of Wilmington College, Micah Mills. Coach Mills is entering his first year as head men's coach at Wilmington. He spent the previous 7 years with the WC program, including the last 4 as associate head coach, where he helped lead the Fighting Quakers to increase their win totals each season. Alongside his duties at Wilmington, Coach Mills has served as a director of PGC basketball camps for nearly a decade. He was previously an assistant coach at Otterbein University for 3 seasons. Before we hear from Coach, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at Jamodi Podcast.
Coach.
Matt, Saman, what's up, baby?
Let's go.
How you doing, man?
And I'm good. How about you?
Man, I am doing well. I'm blessed, and I'm excited to hop on here and talk it up, man. Talk some hoops, talk it all, man. I'm excited.
I want to just thank you so much for giving up your time. I've had the pleasure of knowing you through PGC and been able to watch you teach. And I just think, you're such a talented communicator. You know the game. And so this is just an honor for me, man, to have you on.
I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here. And obviously, I've listened to several of your podcasts, man, and got to spend some time together, a little bit before, like you said, through PGC. And I've always respected what you've done from afar. I'm excited just to talk it up a little bit and connect. So it's a good thing.
And I want to first, I know I'm not the first person, but maybe one of the first people to congratulate you on becoming the head coach at Wilmington College. You were the associate head coach before, and
Correct.
Then got moved up. So, man, congratulations on that.
Hey, thank you so much. It's been a journey and everything else. I appreciate it. I appreciate that.
What are some of the other levels that you've been at?
So I started off I was head coach for a freshman team when I fresh out of high school and assistant varsity. And that year was awesome, man. I always knew I wanted to be a coach, but that year kind of validated things. Like, we won the freshman championship. The varsity team I was an assistant on, we lost in the Final Four of the state title at Parkersburg High School in West Virginia. So we lost in the Final Four. And so that first year of coaching was very, very successful. And then I decided to go get my master's in school. So I went to Otterbein University, and I got my graduate assistant degree, or I got my master's degree, while I was a graduate assistant there at Otterbein. And then I got here at Wilmington College, and I've been here since. And
nice.
Yeah, I've kind of grown from assistant to associate.
Since I've known you, especially with PGC, and just listen to you teach, I feel like you're just such an intentional person with the things that you do, who you listen to, what you read, and now becoming a head coach, kind of making that transition 18 inches over, in that seat. What are some of the daily habits that set you up for success?
Yeah, the first one I honestly would say is just the ability to practice gratitude. I am a man of faith, right? So I pray a ton, and I'm very grateful for what I've been blessed with. And furthermore, with that, I read a ton. I try to read the Bible on a consistent basis, not as much as I would like to. There's definitely times where I'm reading more, and you carve out that time. But I do that on a consistent basis. That's been definitely a staple for me for a long time now. But just the practice of overall gratitude, especially in the morning, is something that really just sets my mindset where it needs to be. It varies day to day. Like, some days I think about certain things that are specific, whether it's thinking about some of my players, or thinking about some of my past coaches that have blessed me, or just thinking about what I get to wake up and do, but just really setting my mindset around being grateful for is just always a set my approach to whatever's coming my way.
Yeah, I don't know, but if you felt this, I know from at some point in my day, I try to be in the Word, and
Yeah,
I used to be where it's got to be in the morning, and then I realized, and mono actually helped me with this. Like start slow in your morning, but not everything has to happen right then, and
right.
and so at some point in my day, I want to be in the Word. And it's amazing to me is that when I am consistent with that, it's not that life is perfect, but it's that
Yeah,
I'm able to handle that adversity in a better way. It
no
doesn't
doubt.
bog me down the same. Have you felt that as well?
100%. And it gives you like a just to continue that sense of like, okay, we're gonna be all right. We're gonna be okay. Whatever's coming your way, and then I I do know, and I'll go the opposite of you a little bit here. Is I can tell the difference when I haven't been as much in the Word as I would like, and when
Yeah.
certain things are coming up, and you don't feel as maybe as rooted or as focused. So I would agree with you on that
Yeah.
100%.
Being at a Christian high school, I mean, we can talk about our faith, and we're kind of mandated to do that, to have that
Yeah,
infusion in everything that we do. And anytime things are going really bad for a player, I always start with, how's your walk? Because I
yeah,
feel like those two things kind of go hand in hand when life just feels so big and these problems are just too much. I'm probably just looking at it from a human perspective,
that's so good.
and not which the other perspective is great, which not that none of this matters, but
Yeah,
it doesn't.
right.
Like
Yeah, 100.
wins, losses, jobs, this or that. It's more on those little things. Are we being faithful? And
Yeah.
whose identity really do we lie? Like that's where it helps.
Yeah, no doubt. That's such a great question to start with, especially, you're talking about that age group of your students and of your players, right? That 14 to 18, right? And them getting to hear that question and them getting to reflect on that question on a consistent basis at that age, man, that's really awesome. That's really really awesome to hear.
Gratitude, it is such an important attitude to have. uh,
Yeah.
is there something that you intentionally do? I mean, you mentioned just kind of thinking about it, or like, is it you write things down, you have some people that are a kind of a list that you want to go through? Is there an organization to your gratitude? Or I mean, it could be just as simple as, I just wake up and whoever just pops in my head, that's kind of who I think about.
Yeah, I've done gratitude journals before. It usually for those. I journal better in the summertime for
Mm,
whatever reason, just kind of how my schedule flows. But one of the things that I do is anytime I'm leading a gratitude session, and so I'm blessed here at Wilmington College. Obviously, I lead our team, and we go through gratitude sessions. But I also do them. I teach a couple classes here. I teach a couple courses here, and all of them, every single day that I teach a class, we always start off with a moment of gratitude.
because
Um,
Professor Mills is who I'm
yeah, so
talking to
there's
right
there
here.
is there is Professor Mills. Yeah, that is correct. Um, and anytime that I do a gratitude session with my players, with my students, I always participate in the gratitude session, and that has helped me just a ton to stay focused on that. So whether it's, hey, think of somebody you would like to send a message to that needs to hear from you today about why you appreciate them. I'm going to do the exact same. Sometimes we do a list, sometimes we do a group share, whatever. But I always partake in all of our gratitude shares. So it's definitely more, I would say, definitely not as detailed and structured, but more abstract, but on a consistent basis. Yeah.
That's a cool idea, though, to take your team through is a gratitude session. Yeah, just kind of walk me through what that looks like from with your team.
Yeah. I actually, one of the questions you kind of had had me look over a little bit was like, what's a great, our team culture activity that I've done
Yeah.
with my team. And that honestly has been one of the better team culture activities I feel like we do are our gratitude shares.
Mm.
And so typically we do them after workouts, and we'll just get together in a small group, and I have them do it on their own first, whether it's a individual person or whether it's a question. Like, one of the big questions that I really like is, what is setback, a trial, a struggle that you've overcome, that now that you've overcame it, you're thankful, you're grateful that you got through it, and what's the lessons that you took from it. And to get our guys to, number one, to think about that and really have their mindset kind of fixed on that type of approach to situations, and then to get them to be vulnerable and to share. I always see just our team just get a little bit closer, right, and a little bit closer every single time. Um, and so that's typically how I set it up. I usually have it after a workout. I'll have them either pull out their phone or pull out their team notebook, depending on where we're at and things, and then have them do it individually on their own, and then we'll put them in this like small groups, and I have them share in their small group, and then I oftentimes will say, all right, hey, somebody share something that you really like that your teammates share to the whole team.
Mm.
And so say Matt shares about Micah that how he overcame such and such, and it kind of just continues to connect those dots and just get the team a little bit closer.
I love that. I think so many times when we think of culture building activities, we think of these grand gestures, going to a lake house,
Right,
bringing parents in, writing
right,
things down, and but sometimes part of culture building activities are also things that are repeatable. You do often, and they can be as easy as in a circle talk. Like I got from TJ was Thankful Thursdays, and
yes,
we do it before our athletic period, which is at 9 o'clock in the morning. I get 43 minutes a day, and we do Thankful Thursdays, and I'm always amazed. You probably feel the same. Of
yeah.
our practices are the best, our workouts are the best when we start with that gratitude.
hmm yeah, and TJ. I'm thankful to have known TJ and spend a lot of time with him and to be able to pick his brain and kind of how he has kind of certain different words for each day, and just those small, like you said, those small little segments do so much. And it's really been an approach that I've kind of taken and adopted, is just that culture, like you said, it's not this big grand thing. It's truly like every little thing that you do, and that's so important, of just doing it every single day. And it would be one thing to do a gratitude session right on November 10th, but then if you don't do another one till February 4th, well then it doesn't matter. But that consistent approach, like you said earlier, of doing it consistently and it's repeatable, that's when I've seen the difference. Yeah.
And from a coaching standpoint too, through the gratitude sessions, you get to see a little bit behind, or a glimpse into really where your players' hearts are at, where their minds at.
Yeah.
Sometimes one of my players, I'm thankful for Chick-fil-A, and I don't tell him, hey, that's dumb, say
Yep.
something else. But like that's really where he's at. Like
Yep.
he's on that level emotionally right now. Or then you can hear, I'm really thankful that my grandfather is with us, because they dive into another thing that you might not even known. And then if you do it often enough, you get to really have a good, I think coaches talk about the pulse of their team,
Yeah.
having a good idea of where they're at. I think gratitude sessions often will help you to have a good pulse or grip on where your team's at.
Yeah, so good. And it's always you knowing where your individual, where your players are at, is how you build out those real relationships. And I still remember, this was about 2 years ago, and I've been fortunate. So Coach Casey Hunt was the former coach here at Wilmington College, who I worked for these last 6 years now. And he let me do a lot of stuff with our culture. So I've been able to do kind of some of these things in the past, a ton of. And I remember a couple years ago I shared about I was just really grateful for my grandfather, and why, and at the time, I unbeknownst to me, one of my players' grandfathers back home had just gotten to the hospital, and it was
Mm.
not looking well at all. Um, and it just built a connection with us. And I remember he came up to me afterwards and he was like, "Coach, you man, like how you feel about your grandpa is like how I feel about mine." And it just really just bonded us in that moment. And it was just cool for me to think of like, yo, like we wouldn't have did that. Like, yeah, I talk about my grandparents at times, but he wouldn't have known, he wouldn't have felt that. And then now I can empathize with him a little bit more about what he's going through. And he felt comfortable being able to share that his grandpa was going through some challenges and how that's been upsetting him, type of thing. So definitely gives you a pulse on your team, and it helps you build those personal relationships.
The Jamodi podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products. What's one of the best things that you've borrowed lately? This is the time where I feel like, so many are reevaluating some of the things or systems that they have in place. I can't even imagine in your position where, even though you're getting to carry over some of the culture pieces that you've already put in place, you have this admiration for the previous head coach that you work for. But could imagine, I mean, you want to have some of your own imprint and on the program. So what are the things that you're looking forward to borrowing right now?
Yeah, so the two things I'll start off with have been interview things that I've borrowed. So I talked to one of my good friends, is a guy, Jeff Bowles, who's the head coach at Ohio University. His son plays on my AAU team, and Coach Bowles has been, man, he's just been awesome to get to know, and to just collaborate with on these AAU weekends. Like, he's out there watching his son and he's supporting his son, and it's crazy to think you have a D1 coach, right, that his son's on your team, and like, I kid you not, like, he stays out of it. Like, he doesn't talk to me about playing time. He doesn't talk to me about, like, oh, you need to be doing this, like, whatever. Like, if I ask him, like, we've had different basketball talks, right, when I've talked to him about this or asked him to pick his brain, but he's never once talked to me about how I'm coaching his son, how much playing time his son's getting, or anything like that,
Wow.
which has been really cool to see. It's been
Yeah.
really cool and refreshing. But a share that he had with me, I was talking to him about going through the interview process and some things that he's done different. One of the things that he really pointed out to me and helped me with was helping the AD see you in themselves. And so, like, he talked to me about how, to really research your athletic director, because that's like going to be your boss, that's going to be your guy, and make those connections of how have your careers aligned, right?
Wow. Yeah.
And how can you make that connection so he can say, oh, I can see myself in Micah, right? And that really, honestly, I know for a fact it was a difference maker. It was truly a difference
Talk
maker.
about a wow. I mean, a wow moment. Like, that's what you only have a few of those moments with
Yeah,
people, especially right at the very beginning too. I can't imagine in Texas right now, if there's a head coaching job, there's over 100 applicants for it. I
right.
don't care what level. I can't
Yeah.
imagine a college job right now, how many people are coming through. So yeah, that's a huge tip right there.
Yeah, it was, and just how simple he made it was like, I was like, wow, like, it was. I felt like, I felt kind of like, dang, I can't believe I haven't thought about that. But then at the same time, I was like, oh
Thinking
my,
back to all the interviews that, golly, I messed that
yeah,
one up.
yeah. So it was good. So that's definitely a share. And also along those interview lines, Edward LeBlanc from PGC, a PGC director, and he runs his own court sessions and things. I talked to him about some interview things, and he just talked to me about, you know, answering the question, but also answering the question how you want to answer the question. And I talked to him about how I was kind of frustrated with some of the questions I was asking in a previous interview, and he was talking to me about, listen, like, always answer the question, right? But make sure you answer it how you want to answer it, and it's your interview, and like, you have to own that question a little
Mm.
bit. And to me, again, it was just like a little switch, a little tip for me of like, yeah, like, I'm gonna answer your question, but I'm also, I'm gonna make sure it's me answering the question, and I'm setting it up how I want this, conversation to go. And so they'll Ed LeBlanc and Jeff, both they both really helped me, and we're two shares that I implemented right away, going through these last couple weeks of interviewing for the head coaching spot here at Wilmington. Um, so yeah, I'll use those for now. I have some basketball ones too, but I don't want to keep going for you.
Go with the basketball ones.
Yeah. I've done a lot of work this past spring with Tyler Costin with his race and space, cohorts. And so I actually, obviously I've known Tyler
Savvy.
for savvy basketball, baby. So I've known, TC now for a really long time. Been a mentor, a friend, a brother in a lot of ways for a lot of years now. And how he's teaching the game of basketball and how he's broken it down is very special. And him just going through his race and space offense and fine tuning the simplicity of it and also the creativity of it at the same time is very unique. And so I've been able to implement a lot of our race and space stuff with our AAU team. And it's been so great to see them how they've grown as players. And early on, we actually, just a quick story, we scrimmaged this team, and they beat us early on because they were running sets and they were running plays. And our guys are coming out of high school where that's kind of their norm. And I'm trying to really get them to grasp on how to play the game of basketball and to play in space more and don't rely on plays and things. And so early on, they beat us. And several of our first time we scrimmaged them. And then we played them this past 2 weekends ago in the championship of the tournament we were in, and we beat them by 20. And they couldn't run any of their actions, right? We were denying stuff, and we were up pressure. So
are you locked left with them as well?
We don't, but I would say we emphasize hard weak hand, but we aren't fully locked left, but definitely forcing weak hand.
Yeah.
And so, from a defensive standpoint, they couldn't run any of their actions, right? And our guys we were dicing them up a little bit, moving and cutting and spacing and playing fast and not having to call any plays. It was definitely one of those moments that I was just like, yeah, man, this is good. This is good.
Yeah, for anybody that, is interested in learning more about Tyler, obviously all of his savvy shooting, his lock left, his race in space. And he was actually the second episode that I ever put out. I've been going back through some of those early episodes with a notebook because I don't want the things that we talked about just to kind of be floating out there, that I hope I remember some of the nuggets. And man, I think I was like through 4 pages of notes through his episode. But yeah, for coaches out there that want a more creative way of playing where players get to play on instinct and get to read each other and they make plays, that's a good system to look into.
Absolutely.
What was the other thing? Because you had 2 basketball ones, I thought.
Yeah. The other one was truly just the importance of skill development and just the importance of everyday skill development. So there's been a lot of one-on-one things I've been working on with our skill development, but the big one is this idea of like not tiptoeing when you're attacking the basket. And what I mean by tiptoeing is like, yeah, there's a part where you want to be reading the play, but just making sure every time you go to attack the paint and inside the 3-point line, like it's with intent. Otherwise we're not going inside the 3-point line unless it's with an intent of getting to the rack or an intent of forcing help to make a play or whatever. But this idea of like so many players just kind of just tiptoe and just kind of go, and they're not really going anywhere and they're not really causing anything. And so I've really been trying to borrow as many one-on-one and just like attack the basket things as I can find. And obviously I've been able to grow that through PGC a ton and learn from there, but I've found some new different like kind of one-on-one attack series and stuff like that I've been able to see a difference in my guys. And yeah, it's awesome, man, when you see your players grow from not being able to fully attack the basket to get to the basket, and now they're struggling to kind of finish. And now, man, I'm confident, like when my guys, my AAU team, like when they're attacking, they're finishing. And it's been a process, but to see them get to that point is just so encouraging, and it's fun to watch.
But I think your order is correct in the fact that you're teaching them to aggressively attack the paint with a focus to score. Yeah. That purpose right there gives them the tools, the mentality to get there often. Yeah. If there's no direction or even just get to the paint, you'll have guys, like you said, tiptoeing or
Yeah.
the paint actually goes up pretty high. They can
Right.
still be 15 feet away from the basket in the paint. You tell a kid we're attacking the paint to score, where
Yes.
you want to have that a scoring mentality. Then once they are developing that mentality, those skills, we're struggling with finishing. And you can start to pinpoint what types of finishes do we need to work on, what types of spin, what kind of accountability can we use during that skill work to help. That's the right order, but I think it's reversed quite a bit. Finish, 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 but no emphasis on really attacking the score. You see players never using those skills that they were working on early. That's just my opinion.
No, I love it. I think that's a great. I don't think that's an opinion. I really think that's a great assessment of it. You know, you spend so much time on, yeah, finishing, finishing, finishing. But if you don't get that intent to attack the paint and be able to play through contact and all that other stuff, you can have every spin in the book, every jelly you want, and everything else. But if you can't get there, it does not. It doesn't matter. And then the other piece of that, as you know, right, is you'll have players that when they first start to do it, game speed against really good defenses and things like that, like they're typically not that successful early on, right? Because you got to get used to it. Um, but then once they do it and they do it again and they do it again, then they start to finish and they get that little bit of success, and then it's kind of like they're hooked. Then at that point they kind of get hooked. But so many players, they don't make it through that progression, right? They don't learn how to consistently attack the paint, and then they don't learn how to play through those misses and kind of those mistakes. So then they never get to the end result of like, oh yeah, I'm an attacker, right? They kind of just they don't make it. They don't make it through it.
And that's a little bit of the art of it, right? That's kind of our responsibility. Is we almost have to praise them for the things that we know they'll be able to do,
Yes.
not the things that they're doing in that moment. Because if we're just coaching on that or acknowledging the fact that they're struggling, like it's not enough, but praising them like, hey, what you're doing right now is going to translate and is going to create this opportunity.
Yes.
And to help that buy-in. Because you're right, once someone is seeing success in something, you typically get buy-in, but it's that early part that's really tough.
Yeah, and I'll ask you this. So for me, I've been able to see this in summer camps. I've been able to see this in a college career, right? Because you get a guy as a freshman and you progress them along sophomore, junior, senior. AAU, I've been able to see it because I get these guys from these high school programs where not all programs are the same and not all players are being coached the same. So, they're nervous about it early, the mistake. And then once they realize that, well, when they're playing for Coach Mills, that mistakes are, we can do that, we can play through it and things like that. And they get that progression. But for you at the high school level, is that something that you have to take your lens on and off, or your focus on and off of, like, at this point in time in the year, we can focus more on the mistakes, and at this point in time in the year, it's more definitely like, hey, results based? Or how do you kind of navigate that, especially with like the skill development and seeing it in game?
That's really good. I think first off, you and I, because we're like-minded in the way offensively, like with Tyler, and even though some of my terminology is probably different,
Yep.
We're creating space, we're creating advantages, and we want guys to shoot open shots, if not attack, if not move the ball. So like
Right.
it's a lot on the same lines. Because of that, our skill work or any individual skill work that we choose can really build into what the actions that we're asking them to do. I think that's a flaw or a problem with running sets after sets after sets that ask players to do a lot of different things, or only a few different players, is how do you choose the skill work that you're actually going to put them through? Because the cool thing with a free flowing offense like we run is there is just a huge world full of individual skill pieces, games, accountability drills, or tools that we can use to help them do what we know that we want them to do. So that's the first thing. To kind of answer your question, rarely especially in skill work and in practice, is it about results? It's always about that process of getting more dynamic, getting to the paint, making those reads, celebrating when they do those things right. If they're coming from a program like in your case that's not what they do, acknowledging with them and yourself that it's going to take a lot of time, and then you might not see the benefit, or you might not see the growth at the rate that we want it to happen. But that's where you've got, like, as coaches, I feel like we've got to be strong in our resolve, because when something's not working right, they're not getting it. You hear they're just not getting it. That really what we're saying there is, in games it's not working and it's resulting in turnovers, bad shots, or maybe even losses. But if you truly believe in that, what you're teaching them will help them to improve and they will get it in time, then you don't scrap it or go to something else just because it's not working. Coaches will ask, like, because we do that, well, what if you play a bigger, faster, stronger team? Well, we might lose. Like, that's the truth. I just haven't seen a style that works against everyone.
Right.
But here, I feel good about the fact that I'm teaching them how to play individually. They can all get better. And if it's a select program, they will go back to their high school teams better for whatever they run. What we're teaching, it will help, because everybody wants guys that can knock it down, that can make the quick read to move the ball, or they can attack the paint and either finish or transfer, right? Like that's the key.
Yeah. So good. That's that approach, man. I love it. That's what it needs to be. So that's appreciate you.
I don't know if I answered that. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, you talked about it, just like you said earlier, like anytime you're in a skill session or practice, you're not focused on the result. It's definitely that process based and getting there. Because it's so hard. I see it a ton, and to be that type of coach, and getting these players from different programs at the college level, it's a hard mindset to break sometimes in our guys, of them understanding that it is a process. Because what sometimes happens at our level, when you get these guys 18, 19 now, right? They are embarrassed to make mistakes.
Yeah.
They don't want to go through whatever, ball handling segment we're doing that is forcing them to lose the ball. So instead of going better and losing it, they go a little slower, or they, don't go as crisp and things. And so it takes some time to break that habit and to break that mindset of like, I can't make a mistake, or I don't want to make a mistake in front of my players.
Yeah.
The best ones do. The best ones get there. The best ones get there. But sometimes they struggle. They struggle to do it initially.
Well, and unfortunately too, you're probably getting players that, and not every program, but are coming from programs where they were the best player, and so they only saw their teammates getting embarrassed, or they came from a culture where if you make a mistake, you're going to get yelled at. Mm-hmm. They don't want to do that again. So, and because I know you and the culture that you are, from PGC, but then also that you have there. Mm-hmm. I think it's up to us to give them that environment, because the style that we're talking about is full of errors and turnovers are going to happen. Yeah. Especially at the beginning of the season. And so it's kind of like what we went back to, like we are constantly telling them how close they are. Yeah. But because we're telling them how close they are, that means that there was a mistake. It's not perfect. But we're really close. Like we're almost there. And then you might be saying that all the way through. And then those beautiful click moments that you get in this style of play, where the ball, we up it, we rip hard, we get to the paint off a stride stop, we air them, we kick, we boom 1, 2, or we click, boom for a 3. Like, and when it happens, we all look at each other and there's this satisfaction, and that feeds the machine of going farther. But yeah, I think you're right on the money. we have to allow our players, create an environment where they can make the mistakes necessary to become good at what we're asking them to do.
Yeah, no doubt. I can't say it any better. I cannot say that any better.
Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Ballology. What's your BSA score? The Ballology Skills Assessment is the only verified skills metric endorsed by the NAIA, NJCAA, and a growing number of NCAA coaches to discover and develop the best talent for your team. This 4-minute, 40-shot test can be taken free today on the Ballology mobile app. Elevate your game. Big culture guy, and especially, I mean, I think if you've ever worked for PGC, I just don't know how you don't believe in everybody. Right. Everybody, whether they know it or not, everybody believes in culture. They have one. It's either they're in control of it and helping it to grow, or it's out of control and they're in trouble. But so I know you believe in it. How does it drive performance?
I feel like a culture, it can do one or two things. The first one is I feel like it sets the floor, right? So if you have a true culture of togetherness and how we work, how we approach situations, blah blah blah, and everybody wants to be part of it, you will set the floor as, okay, we'll be this type of team because our culture is this strong. We'll always be this type of team. And then when you get certain talent and you get certain things, then you can, go up the chute. On the other side, I think you can see of like a kind of, does it set the ceiling? Like, does it set the floor? Does it set the ceiling? Does it set the ceiling as far as you have this much talent, but your culture isn't that strong, where it's like, this is as high as you can go. Your talent can get you here, but it's not going to get you any higher, and that's what I think that culture, how culture drives performance, is like, just elevates everybody in the program. Or if you don't have that culture, that you're controlled and it's a negative culture, it kind of sets the ceiling on how far your team can go. Thoughts, agree on that, or what do you?
Well, yeah, right on the money, because I mean, look at every NBA team. Every NBA team has stars.
No doubt.
Some have more than others, but they all have stars. But you can tell the culture of these elite people, and the coaches are great, and they have all the help and all the financial, but it still comes down to buy-in, relationships, the level of care, how important the players see culture in relation to winning.
Yeah,
that's what is most important at that level. Yeah. I think it's you're right on the money.
Yeah, it's so, like, everybody talks about culture and you need it and this, that, and the third, and same thing in the business world, same thing in the school environment. What's our school culture and things like that, but to live it out every single day, right? And it to be so ingrained that you don't really have to talk about it. Those are the types of coaches that I like to follow. Those are the types of environments I want to be part of. Is like Miami Heat right now, man. If you read anything that their players are saying or listen to any of their post game comments, like, they all sound the same. Yeah. They all sound the same. And like, they're not out here like, obviously everybody knows Miami Heat culture if you know the NBA, how good it's been, but their players are just like, it's so crazy to hear how they're like, literally you can put the mic in front of Jimmy Butler or PJ Tucker or whoever, Tyler here, and like, they all celebrate each other. They all say somebody else's name. They all, talk about the game plan. They all talk about his next man up. And so it's real, right? Yeah. It's not fake. It's real.
Man, you're so true. Like, when it's really starting to trickle down, when they're speaking the same, they're even mimicking, sometimes mocking, but mimicking what you're saying, the same phrases. Yep. I think you're right there. The other thing you said was it does come down to consistency. What's one of the hardest things in the world to do in any arena? I mean, it could be with your marriage, it could be with parenting, it could be with your faith, it could be with coaching. Is to be consistent in how you show up every day. So you could boil down to the teams that have issues with their culture, they probably have an issue with consistency. And because everybody, most likely in their gym, they have words on the wall, they have a few posters, they've had somebody come in and do some cool art, They
Yep.
may even do one culture building activity that looks great on Instagram, but if
Yep.
there's no consistency with it, then you'll see those fluctuations, right?
Yeah, no doubt. And if as a player, I played for a coach that you didn't know if he was gonna you didn't know if he was going to walk in and give you a hug or if he was gonna walk in and bite your head off, right? So the old adage is like, if you don't know, what do you stop doing? You stop going up to him, right? If you don't
Mm.
know if he's gonna lean in and give you a hug or lean in and try to bite your head off for some reason that you don't know, you just stop, leaning into your coach, type of thing. And if you don't know how your coaching staff or the leaders on your team are going to show up every single day, you start to just kind of like back up and wait. You start to kind of like look sideways, and you don't know.
How is he today? How is
Right?
he?
Yeah, that's exactly you know how it is. It's like, oh, coach, hey, coach is walking in like this today, like blah
Yeah.
blah blah. And when you have that, like that's not real. That's not real culture.
And today's players need to know. Today's
Yes.
players need to know who you are and how you're going to show up every day, and be able to bank on that. The days of, and I mean, reading books even on Bobby Knight, like one of the greatest coaches of all time, it seemed as if he was purposefully keeping them off balance, never
Mhm.
wanted them to feel comfortable. And there is a part of, you can create maybe a sharpness of that. Like, you can never come in and just be relaxed. You better be on edge. I guess there's a part of performance where that could elevate some things, but with times changing, with this buzzword culture being out there, and how easy it is for players to just change and move
Yeah.
and go other places, I think consistency from us is more important than ever before.
Totally agree. And there's also that misconception too of sometimes like people like, oh, you're a culture based coach or you're a relationship based coach, like that means you're soft. And it's like, no, that does not. That's not what that.
Yeah.
That's not what that means at all. It means actually the probably the opposite of that. And you can have a culture of truth telling. And that's the biggest thing that I love about my relationship with my players is they know I'm going to tell them the truth. Right when they're showing up the right way and they're chasing their best self and like they're going to know I'm gonna pat them on the back. I'm gonna give them a hug. I'm gonna give them a high five. I'm gonna praise them.
Yep.
But when they're not, I'm also going to tell them like you're not showing up as your best self. Like that's not acceptable. And you can have that conversation and still be a relationship based coach or have culture.
And it's just probably not going to be angry and yelling,
Right.
which, who wants to hear that every
Yeah.
day? So I completely agree with you. For those that say a culture based coach or program, which even that word is weird, that even that phrase, because
Yeah.
everybody is,
Yep.
but the ones that are maybe positive or intentional, oh, they just never are hard on their players. Or they, I think telling the truth is one of the hardest things to do to anyone at every time, to confront someone in truth and love. But it doesn't, if you have a relationship with that person, you don't have to yell at them to get your point
Right.
across, because they already know that you care. People, when they yell, it's that emotion of coming out, and they really want to make sure that this person knows how passionate they are. I just think you don't have to try so hard if the relationship piece is already there.
Yeah. Quick story. This is you. I love what you're saying here because like when I was teaching in school, there was this one time this kid did something silly in class. They know he wasn't supposed to be doing, and I was like, Michael, out in the hallway. Like that's like out in the hallway. Now these are juniors and seniors in high school, right? So I'm like out in the hallway. So like finish up the 30-second segment I was saying. And so I go out in the hallway and I'm like really just like they're like, what do you think it's funny to be the class clown and like why like blah 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 like all these things like this isn't who you are but you're acting like this. And I would say like I was speaking definitely with a raised voice, but didn't cuss, didn't anything crazy, whatever. Goes back in the classroom at lunch, like 8 teachers come up to me in the cafeteria like, oh my gosh, all the students were saying like Coach Mills, Mr. Mills went off on him today. Like he went off, like yada yada yada. Like all the students were like, oh my goodness. And like it was such in that moment of also realizing of like when you do have to raise your voice just a little bit when it's not the norm, people know like, oh, I messed up. Oh, that was wrong. And understand like, oh, something has to change in that moment. Versus if every single day you're always like that and you do like nobody will know the difference. It's like that coach that comes in every single time at halftime is just yelling and screaming, yelling and screaming, yelling
Yeah,
and screaming.
yeah.
It's like, okay, like coach, that's coach being coach. It's not like, oh, this is different now. Like we need to level up. I'll always remember that as a teacher of like the one time that I kind of basically raised my voice, like it went through the whole school. It
And
went through the whole school.
you're here thinking, don't make me actually raise my voice.
Exactly. That's exactly.
That's good. Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Shoot 360. The future of basketball has arrived in Dallas-Fort Worth. Shoot 360 combines the latest sports technology with the fundamentals of basketball skill development. The result is a one-of-a-kind video game-like basketball program designed to improve your shooting, dribbling, and passing. Visit shoot360dfw.com to learn more and register for your free 1-hour workout evaluation. Shoot 360, the future of basketball is here. You coming from when I first started directing with PGC, I just wanted to take shape and take it right back to my school. This is our culture. This is what we're doing. And we did that for a few years. And then I've tried to get a little bit more to where my players are choosing the culture a little bit more than me forcing it down. But, you taking over a program, what are some of the standards or pillars of your program?
Yeah. I have a phrase that I live by, and follow me on Twitter. I hashtag it a lot. It's called "We Press On," right? And it's something that I've kind of just developed as that mindset to understand that no matter what approach in life, right? Good, bad. There's always going to be good, bad, successes, failures. And no matter what it is, like you always have to press on. Like you do something good, that's great, awesome, let's celebrate it. But now it's time to press on to the next thing. You do something bad, you struggle, got to move on to the next thing. So that's kind of the tagline that I kind of use, and then I've kind of broken it down to kind of an acronym where the we is just talking about us being together. The P is for passion. The R is resilience. Just fighting through everything. The E is enhancing, which is that obviously definitely something from PGC, but just being able to enhance your environment at all times. The S is to support everybody, right? Support, and it's just very simple. That's the kind of the definition tagline I give is to make every person know that they matter, right? Your teammates, your coaches, your referees, your family, friends, whatever. Just make everybody know that they matter. And then the second S is strength. Like in everything that you do, have that approach, that mindset of a champion, that strength of a champion. How you listen, how you communicate, how you carry yourself. Just have that of a champion. And then the on is just forward, right? On. It's always forward. So that's kind of the tagline and what we use as our pillars. And you can relate that. Obviously, it's very relatable to basketball, but more relatable to life as well.
I'm always fascinated when cultures or standards, pillars, whatever word you want to use, lines up with the style of play that you choose as well, because there are so many great words that you could put on a t-shirt, you could put on your wall. But I wonder how many cultures out there that coaches choose for their programs, but that don't actually line up with how they play. So press on, we press on in our style of offense is huge because it's going to look ugly at times. You're going to miss 2, 3, 4 threes in a row. But if they're the right threes from the right people, press on, fellas. Like, don't worry. That's 100%. The right thing. So I love that connection between what your phrase in every aspect of your program.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And you just hit on something right there for me. And this is kind of going back to the style of play. When you play a certain way where your players know they can be in attack mode and they know they're always, trying to play fast and things like that. you get so many buckets that you don't have to coach, or you don't have to, that you had nothing to do. You had nothing to do with that.
Rarely is it me on the side going, that was me.
Right.
That was my play. Rarely. You're
Yeah,
right.
yeah, and I've found it, especially this AAU season, with really just diving into having an offense where the guy's first initial reaction is to sprint, is to attack the score or kick it ahead to score. There's been so many games, and I know you can say, "Oh, it's AAU and whatever." People don't play deep, but it's still basketball. It's still going to be a lot of close games, right?
They play defense. That's just yeah.
You're right. And so there's still a lot of close games, and there's been so many games because that's the habit of our team. Every single time that it's a 2-possession game with 4 minutes left in the game, and all of a sudden we go on a 6-0 run.
Spurtability, man.
Yeah. And you go, and now there's 2 minutes left, and you're up 10. Like, essentially, the game is kind of over. And so you obviously got to finish it out. You got to play, but like that breathing room of it being a 2-point game with 2 minutes left versus it being a 10-point game is everything.
Mm-hmm.
And every time that runs happen, because we played fast in the past here, but I would say we played semi-fast, right? We had to emphasize transition early in the year.
Too much control.
Yes, exactly. And so every time it's happened, I've been like, yeah, that's because of the habit of doing it for the whole game.
Yeah.
We went on that run right there at the 4-minute mark.
I mean, everybody gets upset in the first or second quarter when we're not getting some of the runouts that we want. We're missing some shots, but then everybody's cheering in the third or fourth quarter when some of those things, or vice versa.
Yep.
Like, you can't, if you have it both ways, you're going to blow a team out. But that just doesn't happen a lot when you're playing against good competition where things are similar, things are even. If you just want blowouts, then in AAU you got to go to the worst tournaments and just play bad teams, or in high school just only schedule bad teams and maybe a couple teams in your district or conference that happens at times. But you're going to get to a level where there are going to be runs, and as a coach with this style, you don't get upset with the misses early on, that you get happy about similar shots. You get happy about the makes later on. That's an inconsistency that will ultimately, in my opinion, hamper their creativity, how aggressive they are. I'd rather have to pull them back than ever say, but I think if early on those turnovers are, hey, well, slow it down. Heck no, never.
Yeah.
Like, what we're doing is right, whether we're actually scoring out of it or not.
Yeah, it'll come. I don't know. Are you familiar with the college team, West Liberty University? They're a Division II school up here in West Virginia.
Yes, I am.
Very successful. One of the more leading scorers on the offensive side consistently. And we played against them in high school. In college, when my college, I went to Ohio Valley University. We played against West Liberty, and it was always, especially when I became a junior and senior, I was more mature and understood what was happening, is every game about the 6 to 4 minute mark, we were always in the game, but we consistently lost by 12 to 15. And it was because of they never stopped their approach. They never stopped their approach. And they were just always just waiting. At some point in time, they're going to crack. At some point in time, they're going to crack. And obviously, as we got better and we hung with them a couple times, but eventually we cracked, right? And they went on, like you said, 2 threes and then an one, or 3 straight layups or whatever it is. And all of a sudden, it's like, oh, it was just a 4-point game. We're down 10, and it's like, and you get so frustrated. But I started to realize I was watching more film on them, and like, that's how they beat majority of their teams. It's just that consistent approach of Coach Crutchfield over there on the sideline, like, missed the 3 early. They're like, that's the right look. Like, we're fine. And then 3 minutes left in the game, they bang both of them back to back.
One of my favorite things to do is when I watch coaches, and it happens a lot in the NBA, that their team will miss a shot and there's no reaction from the bench.
Yeah,
like, I love that. Like, I think that's them truly at that level understanding. All right, analytically, that's a great shot.
Yep.
And our offense is working because we're producing that.
Yep.
I just see so much, and I feel like, even at the high school level, it's just watching games, seeing people get so mad about misses. If it's a bad shot you're talking about, then you've got to turn that around right on yourself, because you guys haven't discussed shot selection properly. They don't all understand. And so over the course of the game, maybe one or two, maybe three shots get away from us. We lose our minds, but we'll move on from that. But I just see the phrase is the guys, make your layups, make a shot. If we can make a free throw, I mean, rarely are players intentionally trying to miss.
Yeah.
And so we have to allow them. And that's sort of part where confidence does come in, where coaches, I think, sometimes can erode, maybe take away from a little confidence, or we can uplift and we can actually push their confidence forward. Like, that's you're 0 for 5. What's about to happen? And I'm just thinking of Andrew, one of my shooters from this last year. Andrew, 0 for 5. What's about to happen? He'll look at me. I'm about to go off. Yes. Like you start to have those conversations, and then you see some amazing performances.
Yeah, no doubt. And that confidence is coaches play. I know we talk to our players all the time, right? It's like, don't let a coach take your confidence. And
yeah, that's a PGC thing, and I do believe it. But go ahead.
But as a coach, I know I have a big responsibility in my players' confidence. I wholeheartedly know that for a fact, and all coaches do. I know coaches that made me feel like I was better than what I was, and I know coaches that made me feel like I was less than what I was, and I was a pretty confident player in basketball and football growing up, but there still were coaches that aided in that. And so we have I think as coaches we have a huge responsibility in that, especially what happens right after the mistake or right after the miss. Right? It's really hard to be a player that right after they make a mistake or make a miss, they truly move on to the next play. If their coach is every single time like, "Come on, or what? How do you miss that?" Like that type. It's really hard for that player to truly be a player that moves on to the next play.
That's a great reminder, and anytime, like, that's such a good nugget, and I immediately think of just the poor reactions that I've had to things. But I think that's important that we whatever we're asking them to do, we've got to make sure that we're doing it as well. And that's really good.
Yeah, that was one of, I told you earlier about, Jeff Bowles, his son, playing for us. And after the season, I asked him, I said, "Hey coach, I know you got to see me, coach a lot this year. I would love for your feedback for me." And he had a lot of positive things and things that he liked and stuff and such. But the one thing he said, always remember, like, your players, like, he's like, and he really says, like, your players love you. And they look up to you a ton. Like, you do a great job of connecting with them. And he's like, so they look for your validation even more. And he's like, so you do a really good job with your body language and moving on to the next place. He's like, but the times that you don't do a good job, like, always remember, like, your players are watching you, and like they look over at you. And like, it was just such a reminder for me to take it to an even a higher level, right? Because I was like, you obviously as coaches, like, we gauge ourselves against other coaches at times, and I'm thinking I gotta do a pretty good job at my mistake responsibility. When he just said, like, even the few times that you do it, your players are watching you, and I was just like,
and you can't just sweep that under the rug and say, well, but you're talking out of 1,000 moments, 4 times I don't handle it well. Come on, I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah.
No, like, and my wife works our book for our games. She's the only one I trust to do it. So she's right there, and I'm coaching here. Oh, this year there's just a few times where she said, "Matt, your face," a few times. I was like, "What?" She's like, it was so mean, like, so mad. And I thought, no, it wasn't. She's like, "I'm just telling you, if I was another parent and I saw that," and I love her so much for telling me that. Yeah. But then, what are the moments that I look back on this year and I'm so ashamed of? Mm-hmm. It's not losses or a bad call on my part, a bad sub, a bad this or that. It's the times that I reacted really poorly towards my players. I don't even care that much about officials. If I try my best with them, I don't know, my players and the
Yeah.
times that I was resulting so much that I lost my why and forgot my reason for why I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why we keep getting better. That's why, you just
That's why I
keep
talk to dudes like you that remind me I've got a long way to go. A
Oh
long way to
man,
go.
I'm right there with you, buddy. That's why I listen to your podcast. You find the people, and I just plug it in and listen while I'm cutting the grass.
Well, this has been awesome. We've gone a little bit over an hour, which is incredible. And I feel like I know you and all the PGC guys do. But after the speed round, we're gonna really know who you are.
All right, let's
Ready?
do it. Yep.
All right. Favorite ice cream flavor
Chocolate chip,
for high school? Shot clock or no shot clock?
no shot clock.
I'm going to give you another opportunity. Okay, give me your reason why.
So the argument I've gotten around the shot clock is it will generate better basketball, which I disagree. Like if the players aren't better, if we aren't emphasizing more skill, it's going
You'll
to
have more buzzer beater shots.
Yeah, but it's going to be worse. It's going to be worse basketball. So
Yeah.
I don't equate shot clock equaling good basketball. I create skill development and good offense to good basketball.
I respect that.
That
makes sense.
I see where shot clock can be an advantage. It forces more action, but just because you have more action doesn't mean it's better basketball.
Yeah, I'm satisfied with that answer, and so I'll move on. Texting or talking?
Ooh, talking.
Favorite holiday?
Thanksgiving.
Favorite NBA player of all time?
Allen Iverson.
Oh, that's a good one. Who is the modern day Allen Iverson?
John Morant.
Oh man, I just see John's bigger.
Yes.
But people are like, well, he dunks early on. He was dunking on people.
He was banging on people.
But he's just smaller.
Yeah, he's smaller, but and it's, to me, it's it's how captivating they are. Like there's a energy around John Morant right now that's just like you love it, And to me, it's the same climb that we saw with AI. Like try to do everything on his own. Yeah, he's gonna pass the ball, but he's still trying to do everything on his own. But it's his grit, his toughness, his swag.
You just lean in a little bit. And I thought Allen Iverson was obviously he was famous for the crossover.
Yep.
But he lived in what now is kind of known as the pocket. That ball out to the side where, Ja's just carrying it multiple steps with the ball here, but it freezes time. It pauses it. And it just makes you hold your breath. I can't imagine being a defender and watching him basically stop time, and then he's gone. The
only way you can guard him is you have to crowd him. But he's too or you have to be. But
make him shoot
against the Warriors when he was hitting games, he had 4 threes and 5. I'm like, if he's gonna do that, it's a wrap.
I don't think he's at the point. And this is like, I'm not even an expert. I don't know. I don't think it's at the point where if I had to choose, I would still force him to do that. Kind of like LeBron in the Miami days. When the Spurs beat them, it's not that LeBron couldn't hit threes. It's just not what he wanted to do.
Right.
And I would still force Ja, and then if he made one, just have to keep reinforcing it. That's better than the alternative. Better than the because he's so hard.
You almost have to bait him into doing that. Like you have to bait him into shooting, and if he's hitting, it's just like, okay, tip the cap. You got it going tonight. But otherwise, he's in the paint.
Oh, and such great touch. All right, if you could travel back in time, what period would you go to? And you can just observe. You don't have to be in it.
Oh man. Going back, I'm thinking of a lot, but man, I would honestly say going back, it's a tough time in America, but going back and observing, not being in, and going back and just watching,
very important.
Yeah, watching the leadership, the run, the impact of, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, like that era, late 60s.
Yeah.
That would have been, I would have loved to just be a fly on the wall in some of those conversations they were having, and yeah, some of those one-on-ones that they were having with people
that we'll never know. Yeah, that we'll never know. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Favorite place to travel?
I'm biased. I'm biased, but back home to my hometown, Dover, Ohio.
That's fair.
That's
fair.
My favorite place to travel.
All right, 2 more. This is just like a coach's question. How many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
What time of year? During season? During season, it can be 2 to 3 for sure.
How do you drink it?
I have a sweet tooth. So I do a.
So you're. It's basically a sugar drink with.
I get caramel syrup and white chocolate syrup.
Oh, see, I never knew this about you. This is great. Last one. Godfather, Star Wars, or neither?
Godfather.
Yeah.
Godfather.
Big Godfather guy.
Yeah. I'm in that very few population that I've never seen a full Star Wars movie from start to finish. I missed it when I was younger. Like it wasn't my thing, and then I got older, and now I just haven't found a reason to commit to it. I
get that. You're almost, there is a sweet spot.
Yeah.
Where you got to get introduced to it, or it's just bizarre.
Yeah, no doubt. And then
there's this little green Muppet that we're watching that has these sayings. I don't know. Yeah.
It never hooked me. Never.
Well, that's the only thing that we've really been disconnected on in this talk. But hey, man, this has been just such a pleasure for me, just knowing you over the years, having a friendship, but then getting to, with PGC, we usually just talk about PGC things. Yeah. And so getting to know you a little bit more as a coach, how you think, and it's just been a pleasure, man.
I thank you for having me on. I hope I gave a nugget or two. I appreciate you, man. I love talking ball, talking leadership in life. I can do that all day long. So I appreciate the opportunity just to connect, Matt. It's been great.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.